Ariel Helwani in Chicago, just days away now from UFC on Fox #2. And look who we have run into, the WWE champion, Mr. CM Punk. And CM, thank you so much for the time. This is a big honor for us. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, it's weird you running into me like this in my house. I don't know how that happened. That's crazy.
I just sort of camped outside, asked a bunch of people, and look, here we are.
You're not the first one. There's some creepers out there. But yeah, cool. Well, welcome. Hi, everybody.
Well, it's very fitting that we're talking to you, especially just days away now from UFC on Fox #2, because you have been very closely linked to this card. Your name has been all over the MMA news reel, and I wanted to ask you a bit about it. At first it was reported, and let's just get it from the source right here, it was reported that Chael Sonnen would walk out with you to the cage on Saturday night in front of your hometown fans at the United Center. Was this in fact true?
It was something that Chael and I discussed, yes. And the thing about my job is you don't get days off. And we have a show that before the big pay-per-view, Royal Rumble, and I somehow miraculously found myself off the show to get an extra day in Chicago, and it seemed like planets kind of aligned. There happens to be a UFC show down the road from my house, and it's something we talked about, yeah. I think it might have gotten leaked before you know, all the chickens were hatched, but you know, so be it.
Unfortunately, it's not going to happen, but you're also a good friend of Chael's, as he told us just a couple of days ago. Where did this friendship come about?
We were introduced by Gerald Briscoe, old school wrestler. Obviously, he's a road agent for the WWE now. He scouts a lot of the amateur wrestling tournaments and stuff around the country. So obviously that's the link. He knows Chael. He put us on the phone one day, like spur of the moment. Like I think Chael might have called him for something, or I don't know. And you know, I think we're alike in a lot of ways. So we just, you know, like you do, you hang out with like-minded people.
Is there any truth to the rumor that you pulled yourself out of the equation because you thought you would overshadow Chael? The entire arena would be chanting your name. This is very much a pro CM Punk crowd, and you didn't want to steal his thunder, so to speak.
Well, you know, it wasn't so much Chael's thunder. I think he had a tough fight, certainly a tougher fight than he has now. I think Munoz was a bigger challenge than Bisping. I didn't really want to overshadow the main event. You know, there's some egos in there, and I didn't want to upset anybody. You know, so just, you know, welcome to Chicago, and you can stay here as long as you want. But you know, I just didn't want to upset anybody.
That's very gracious of you. I'm wondering what you think about, especially this week in particular. Chael has been in rare form. At the press conference on Thursday, he came out with a UFC title. He's been throwing out these lines that are very reminiscent of Ric Flair and superstar Billy Graham, Jesse the Body Ventura. I mean, he's really on top of his game. As a pro wrestler, do you get a kick out of this stuff when someone appears to be sort of dropping some elements of your line of work into his shtick?
I get a kick out of anybody that's entertaining, you know, and I think if anybody that's a naysayer about MMA that can have any criticism is, you know, oh, some of the guys are boring, which clearly I'm not saying, but, you know, Chael, you got to be really hard pressed to say that that guy's boring. He's entertaining, and I think what makes it work is, yeah, maybe it's a little pro wrestling in the MMA world, but, I mean, it works, you know, it's fun. And I think the bottom line is entertaining. People want to see him fight, win, lose, or draw. He knows that. He's a smart businessman. I think there's a lot of guys out there that are now kind of picking up on that. So I think the MMA landscape is constantly evolving and constantly changing, and that's something I think you're going to see a lot more of. The Diaz brothers, awesome. You know, and I think Nick said it after he fought Cerrone. He was like, "Hey, I hope you're not mad at all that stuff I said. That's just for TV." Yeah, finally, some guys are getting it. I think it's fantastic. It's entertaining.
So we in the MMA community like to talk about how, you know, pro wrestling can learn from MMA these days. But do you think that MMA can learn something from pro wrestling? That if more people look at what Chael is doing and the response that he has received from the media and the fans, more guys should be doing this stuff? Why not put yourself out there? As long as you can perform and deliver, who cares?
Well, that's the main thing. You know, talk as much smack as you want. You got to back it up. Will more guys do it? I don't know. It's certainly not as well as Chael. He's very dynamic in that respect. But you know, I think guys like the Diaz brothers, Anybody that says they put a black eye on the sport with their, their antics or their shenanigans, I think people really need to take a look at that, because what it does is it highlights the sport as a whole. And, I don't think anybody's really doing anything, to disparage the MMA community. I mean, that's what people talk about. When you mention Michael Bisping, what do you think about? You think about him spitting on the mat against, Rivera. You think about the Diaz brothers, and you think about Chael and all these guys that are talking trash. And, I think you make more money when people are talking about you, and there's no such thing as bad publicity.
It is very clear that you're a big MMA fan. You've just dropped some little nuggets
Shocking.
here. How do you have time? I mean, I always hear about wrestlers being on the road 300 days a year. How do you have time to keep up with all this?
Well, the one thing that you fear the most, the internet, I think, is the.
It's a scary place, right?
It is a very scary place. I'm terrified of the internet as well. Twitter has turned into like the whole world having my phone number, and that's frightening. But
I think I found you.
You didn't see the big neon sign outside my house? It's a CM Punk's place. That doesn't no. I blindfolded him to get here. How do I keep up on it? The internet. I have friends like Chael, and I got a couple other friends who are fighters and stuff like that. Me and Josh Barnett are pretty tight, and I watch frequently, when I'm on the road, obviously a lot, but I'm always trying to remain spoiler free. But then I have certain people that like to spoil things,
I'm sorry.
But I know I live in a world where, everything's happening live, and stuff sometimes gets spoiled. But the stuff that I really don't want to have spoiled, I can really just kind of shut down and, tune out, make sure everyone doesn't tell me the finishes of fights.
I am very sorry once again about that. You are one of the best talkers in pro wrestling. You mentioned Chael, you mentioned Josh Barnett. Who, in your opinion, is the best talker in MMA? And why are you shaking your head? Did I say something wrong?
You said I am one of the best talkers.
Apologies.
In pro wrestling. I won't toot my horn about anything athletic that I can supposedly do, but when it comes to a microphone, I am the best in the world. Who's the best talker in MMA? I mean, there's a handful of guys that I love. Maybe they're not the most eloquent, but there's a lot of guys that stir up interest. Both Diaz brothers. I think Rashad, he talks a lot, which is awesome. Chael obviously is number one. I feel like I'm leaving somebody out.
Josh?
Well, Josh can obviously talk because he's a pro wrestler too. Heavens.
What's interesting about the Diaz brothers, though, is that they don't even try, right? Like these guys, Chael, Josh, let's be honest, they're trying. Those guys don't even try, and people gravitate towards them. That's fascinating.
That's who they are. The funny thing about that is, and I don't know how much of a pro wrestling fan you are, if anybody watching is going to know who the Briscoe brothers are. The Briscoe brothers are independent pro wrestlers, good friends of mine, and I mean, I would love to put the four of them in a room and have me sit behind like a one-way mirror and just observe them, because the Briscoes and the Diaz brothers they're identical, and it's awesome. Yeah.
All right, let's get back to the fights. You mentioned that Mark Munoz, in your opinion, was a tougher opponent for Chael than Bisping. Mm-hmm. Why?
Simple reason. Munoz beat Chael in college wrestling. So whether he's retained his wrestling skills, whether he's still better than Chael, or whether it was whatever, I think mentally that probably weighed on Chael. I know anytime, you've been in a fight or something like that, the next time you see that person, you're a little bit on edge. There's anxiety, and I just think the mental edge went to Munoz because he'd already beat Chael at what Chael does best, and that's wrestle. I don't think Bisping is as well rounded as Munoz. You haven't really seen a ground game from Bisping, and Munoz certainly has more knockout power in my opinion. So no offense to Michael Bisping, but I think it is a step down in competition. And I really do think, since Chael's been training for a higher caliber opponent, I'm not saying it's going to be a cakewalk, because I don't really think there is such a thing in MMA. But I think whereas maybe I would have been worried Chael might lose, obviously I think he's walking away with the victory.
All right, how about in the main event? You've got Rashad Evans versus Phil Davis. You spoke of Rashad's mic skills, but he's obviously a great fighter, only one loss. Davis undefeated, and a lot of people think, perhaps including myself, that they're moving him up the ladder a little too quickly, that he may not be ready for this. Why not go with the slower approach, so to speak? A, do you agree with that? And B, who do you think is going to win?
Oh, yeah, I can agree with that. But it also, to me, depends on what Rashad shows up. You know, I can't remember the last time he fought, and I know he's coming off an injury.
He beat Tito Ortiz in August.
Okay, he beat Tito. And before that, was it the loss to Machida?
It was he beat Rampage, but that was a 1.5 year layoff in between Rampage and Tito in August.
That's a big layoff. That's why I love MMA. There's so many variables, you know, and anything can really happen. I guess I'm just worried about his hands if I was Phil Davis, you know. And on top of that, I think Rashad's a better wrestler too. So yeah, but I don't know if Phil's really biting off more than he can chew. I mean, he's a tough guy. It's gonna be an interesting fight. I don't see it ending in the first or second round, maybe third.
As a pro wrestler, for lack of a better word, are you at all envious, jealous of the fact that the UFC is on network television now and pro wrestling isn't? It once was. I guess there's the rare appearance on NBC for like a big Christmas thing for the troops and whatnot, but not on a regular basis. Is that a big, sort of point in the UFC's favor over pro wrestling? I'm
not jealous about it. I don't know if I'm going to sound weird when I say this, but like I don't even know what's a network anymore and what's considered cable. I'm kind of out of the loop. If I could contradict myself right now, yeah, I keep up on MMA. I watch it as much as I can. But when it comes to other television shows and stuff like that, I do not keep up unless it comes out on DVD and I can watch it in one block. Like, for instance, right now, I'm watching The Shield. I got the box set for Christmas. So unless it's something I'm really, 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 really into or it's on DVD, that's the only way, you know, I'm watching it. I think it's fantastic that UFC's on network television. Because to me, there's room for both. There's room for pro wrestling and there's room for MMA and UFC. And the more money everybody makes, the happier I am. I think there's a lot of money out there to be made in combat sports, and I think there's room for everybody.
A couple of weeks ago, Brock Lesnar, former WWE champion, lost to Alistair Overeem, and then he retired. A man you know very well, Chris Jericho, wrote on Twitter, which created a lot of buzz, that Brock took a dive. Now, we're wondering in the MMA community and maybe in the pro wrestling community whether or not he was just trying to stir the pot, because he has had some disparaging things to say about MMA in the past, or, you know, was he just being Y2J, so to speak?
Yeah, I think he was being Y2J. I just think he's one of the guys that he's not really in MMA, so he probably isn't as educated as some. To say that Brock took a dive, I don't know. No, I don't think he was serious.
Did your path ever cross with Brock's, not in WWE, but in wrestling in general?
The only thing I ever did with Brock was some little backstage thing. I wasn't even employed at the time. I have no idea why they had me do it. It was 2004. I think it was like a whole year before I finally signed. And I was in Chicago, and I think it was the day after he won the title, and he came walking in, sees me, stops, and goes, "Hey, CM Punk," and shakes my hand. And I said, "Congratulations, champ." And I don't know, to this day, I don't know why they had me do that. I was CM Punk working on the indies for Ring of Honor, and I just happened to be backstage, and they did that. It was the most bizarre thing. That's the most interaction we've ever had.
There are rumors that he may be coming back to WWE at some point. Would CM Punk, WWE champion, welcome him with open arms? Do you think it would be good for business to have Brock back in the WWE mix?
This is where you'll get interesting answers from me. You know, I'm very proud of what I do for a living. I know some people, especially a lot of people watching, probably have less than nice things to say. That's why it's awesome. Everyone has an opinion. When Brock was handed, you know, the keys to the empire, and you talk about Phil Davis getting stuff a little bit too soon. I think maybe Brock got stuff a little bit too soon. It's a very demanding job. It's 24/7, and I just don't think Brock has the personality. I mean, he would just want to punch somebody in the face, which I can completely understand. But unfortunately, it's 2012, and you'll go to jail, and you can't do that. But You know, and he split. He left us high and dry. Now, there's a code in the locker room. You know, when you're the champ, you kind of toe the line, and the money you make kind of gets distributed to everybody else. So, you know, I think maybe 5 years ago I would have been more up in arms about it. Like, you know, nah, this guy left. You can't do that. Blah blah blah. But once again, I won't fault anybody for making money. I would welcome Brock back. I don't think Brock wants to come back, you know, but that's just my opinion. You know, he's done his time here. He's done his time in MMA. I think he was great at both. And there's a few guys that are out there that I don't know if there's really a place for them in modern day WWE. And Brock might be one of them, you know. Doesn't like the road, doesn't like people. And I just don't know if they'd be willing to spend all the money, like the one big payday for him to come in and work WrestleMania or stuff like that, because that would probably be what he wants. And I think it'd be great for business. You know, I don't know if this coming WrestleMania is too soon or whatever, but yeah, I'd welcome him with open arms. I think me and him have a lot of similar traits with the hatred for everybody, but you know, I don't know.
I'm compelled to ask, you said there's a few guys who aren't really cut out for this current WWE scene. Who else?
I just think it's a completely different animal now. I think Kevin Nash came back, and you know, a full-time road schedule isn't something that I think he can do, nor should he. You know, it's another example of a guy who's paved the way for a lot of superstars, and you know, doesn't really need to prove anything. But the climate is, when you work here, I think you need to be on the road 24/7. That's how you become better at what you do. So for older wrestlers to come back, I don't think they can really handle the schedule. You know, Mick Foley's another one. I love these guys to death. You know, but to come back and to work a schedule that is so demanding might be a little bit tough.
Fair enough. One of the first things that I noticed when we walked into your great place here was your gi. And I know you have a background in martial arts, but I did not know you trained in BJJ. Is this something new, or did you just not tell us about this when you were on my show, the MMA Hour, cheap plug, a few months ago?
No. What am I going to do? Just be like, hey, by the way, I do jiu-jitsu. No, I neglected to tell you, I suppose.
But it was very interestingly placed. It was the position, you know.
Well, it's because I just washed it.
I'm just kidding.
It's drying. I like to air dry it.
You did have an arrow pointing above it.
Oh,
you took it down, yeah.
In the sign it says, "This is my gi." Yeah, it's something I've always done, and unfortunately, because of my schedule, not as frequently as I like to. I got a couple of friends out here who I like to go roll with. The only problem is every time I show up someplace, somebody always wants to test the champ. And I can't afford to have some dickweed, you know, break my leg or something like that, because believe me, people try. One real quick story. One time, some guy, you know, like I always show up and throw the white belt on because I'm new at that place, and you know, I'm there to sweat and work out. I'm not there to be a tough guy. And some guy was like, "Oh, what's your background?" I'm like, "Oh, I train in this and this and for this long and blah blah blah." But I'm you know, no superstar by any means. I'm just here to work out. Oh, I'm 45. I just had back surgery. You know, take it easy on me. And I was like, okay. So I'm rolling with the guy, and then of course he gets me in an armbar, and I tap because there's no shame in that, and he doesn't let it go, and I'm just like, this you know. And then we get up, and he goes, "I can't wait to tell my kid I tapped out the champ," like, because that's what it's about for some people. Not me though. There's a lot of guys I've actually met. Gideon Ray works out like on the south side. I met him. Didn't get a chance to roll with him though. I wish I had more time to do it more frequently. I wish I could find a place around here that I liked, but a couple places I've gone to, they're a little sketchy.
As a competitor and a guy who has a background in martial arts, do you ever watch the fights and say, just one time, I just like to see what it's like one time in the octagon? Doesn't have to be for a title, doesn't have to be a main event, but are you at all interested in just knowing what it's like to have an MMA match?
Yes. I don't think that's going to surprise anybody, and those that think that I don't belong in an octagon, I welcome that. I welcome anybody that tells me I can't do anything. It makes me want to do it more. I think there's a lot of guys that their paths might have been a little bit different if UFC was as prominent, because I mean, of all the tough guys in the world and all the wrestlers in the United States that came up and were Olympic caliber athletes, there wasn't really an avenue to pursue after they were done. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's high school, it's college, and then beyond that, it's, if you're good enough, Olympics. A guy like Kurt Angle is a perfect example. You know, tough son of a bitch, won a gold medal with a broken neck. You know, and then after that, what's left for him to do? You know, I certainly believe that if MMA was as prominent as it is today in, you know, what, 97, he won in 96, I don't think Kurt ever would have became a pro wrestler. I think Kurt would have been, you know, fighting in the octagon or somewhere, you know. Some of my favorite fights are with guys like, you know, watching Pride fights when they would have like just, you know, just awesome Olympic caliber, you know, athletes, like when they had Rulon Gardner, you know, like who else was like a wacky wrestler? No, I can't remember his name. But Pride would do that all the time. They would just find these wrestlers and they would just bring them over. Yeah, I would love to give it a chance. And I think the only thing that's well, obviously the only thing that's stopping me is I'm contracted talent and for World Wrestling Entertainment. But also I'm no spring chicken. You know, all these guys they're so young, they're so athletic, and you know, I'm kind of like an older, broken down, like baby deer. Like that's how graceful I am sometimes. You know, I never try to say I'm an athlete or anything like that. What I have is heart, you know, and normally when I have a desire to do something, I set my mind to it, I can do it. So, you know, who's to say? You got to wait maybe 2 years and see what happens in my life. But
so there's a small chance.
I don't know.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I just turned 33.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. It was in October, but you know, I am old. I don't know if I'm too old for this. You see guys fighting all the time. Right. I mean, Randy was fighting when he was 40. I think Dan Severn's still fighting. He's almost 50, or he is 50. So you know, age is different for everybody. It's not really how old you are, it's how old you feel. You know, and I'm not saying coming soon to an octagon or anything. Don't worry, Dana. Calm down. Don't freak out. You don't have another hothead pro wrestler to deal with. But the question asked was, would I be interested? Is it something I want to do? Absolutely. I think there's a lot of guys in the locker room that would give it a shot. I think even Taker's told you that, you know, back in the day, you know, if there was maybe two choices, you know, he would have went somewhere else, you know.
Okay, just want to end on 3 quick things, and then we'll let you go, and I appreciate it very much. You mentioned Dana White.
By the way, I just want to point out that your cameraman is wearing pink socks.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's all.
He's very hardcore.
That's all. Yeah.
You mentioned Dana White, and a lot of people over the last 10 years or so have compared him to Vince McMahon. I know you're a big fan of MMA. I know you've watched Dana interviews. You've seen him do his thing. You obviously work for Vince McMahon. Do you see any comparison between the two characters?
Other than the fact that they are both awesome promoters, you know, I don't know Dana personally, so I really can't say. I like the fact that Dana's way more off the cuff than Vince is. You know, I would say less professional, but that might come off as negative. I don't think he's less professional. I mean, he swears like a sailor. I think that's great. You know, guys like me, and I think that the fans of the UFC can relate to Dana certainly a lot more than the fans of the WWE can relate to Vince, you know. And I don't know if it's an age thing or what that is. They're similar in the respect that I think they're both very shrewd businessmen, you know. I would definitely call Vince a genius, because look at what he built from nothing, from the ground up. This was his baby. And Dana's done a great job of doing the same thing with the UFC. I think I'd have to meet him in person before I called him a genius, though. I don't know.
Good news. He's in Chicago.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, how about that? All right.
Maybe we call him up, have a little soiree here at your place.
Maybe. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, Chael's in the sauna right now, you know, trying to make weight, so.
All right, and the last 2 things I wanted to touch on, and one of them I'll sort of interject here for a second. Obviously, remember your infamous promo last summer in Las Vegas, which seemed to have brought back a lot of old-time fans, such as myself, who maybe moved on to other things. And
see, people, there's room for everybody.
Well, I was very impressed with it, and it got me back on the train for at least a little while. I'm just wondering, and this may, this maybe indulge the wrestling fans who are watching, how has your life changed since then? Of course, we know about the new contract, and you're the champion and whatnot. I'm just curious, as an individual, how have things changed since that summer and that promo in Vegas?
A lot of behind the scenes stuff that people didn't know about when I was legit leaving and I made up my mind, and they kept throwing contract after contract at me, and I was just like, no, I'm going home. I'm gonna sit on my couch, because as you see, I have a very nice couch that I never get to sit on. So my plan was to literally just split and do nothing. I definitely sense I really think I'm more visibly a celebrity now, if that makes any sense. And I hate saying that I'm famous or a celebrity. I get really weird about that, but I am on TV, so I don't really know. I don't know how my mind works sometimes. Yeah, I mean, getting noticed a lot. I mean, I got noticed a lot before, but now it's. I mean, that was the main thing. Like, it seemed everywhere I went, like I legitimately saw people wearing my T-shirt. So that's been a big thing. But I was so burnt out before I resigned, and it's funny to me because people don't really know the length of how much I was burnt out, and to just go, okay, you know what? If I'm going to be back in, I'm back in 100%. I'm back to doing everything, and to just dive back in, like head first, and still being so burnt out. I think it took a toll on my body. Mentally, I'm okay. I think for some reason I just got recharged. I'm happy whenever I'm doing cool stuff, when it's cool and it means something, and I'm given opportunities to produce. Because I think anytime I've ever given the ball, I always hit it out of the park, and because that's what I do. That's how the whole Best in the World thing started. Give me chicken, and I'll turn it into chicken salad. That's I think the biggest difference. And I think certain people in the company have finally started to build faith in me. Those are the big differences.
All right, and finally, it is the Royal Rumble on Sunday, January 29th, from the Scott Trade Center in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm channeling my inner Mean Gene Okerlund here.
Free plugs.
You are facing Dolph Ziggler.
Yep.
You are defending your WWE Championship. How's this one going to go down? Let us know. I could be maybe the coach here. Could I be maybe Todd Grisham? Someone.
Sure.
Or maybe Ariel Helwani.
Coach.
Who knows?
Both those guys work for ESPN now.
Weird, right?
Just be yourself.
Okay.
Be yourself. Except maybe not be an Expos fan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You stole Andre from us.
I
haven't forgotten. I was 5,
That was a long time ago.
but it still hurt.
A long time ago, man.
That's all I got now, memories.
Wow. How it's going to go down. Hey, you know what? If you're a fan of pro wrestling, and I still am somehow, the Royal Rumble is always my favorite event. I'm a little bummed I'm not in the Rumble. Actually, I'm a lot bummed I'm not in the Rumble this year. I think the last 2 years I was a big part of the Rumble, and I made the thing damn entertaining. So my job this year is to make my match more entertaining than the Rumble, and I think I'm in there with a guy who has the same mindset as me. I think Dolph is one of the best guys on the roster, but he's not the best in the world. So obviously, it's going with me. But the interesting thing is Laurinaitis, special guest referee. Now I feel silly talking about all this pro wrestling stuff on an MMA show.
I love it.
Yeah. So I mean, deal with it, tough guys. If you got a problem, come find me. Because chances are, everybody on the internet that says that this pro wrestler shouldn't be anywhere near MMA, I can probably kick your ass.
That is very true. You want to tell us who you're wrestling at Mania? Break some news for us, or should we wait for that?
I don't know. There's all kinds of rumors. Is it going to be The Undertaker? Is it going to be Triple H? Is it going to be Chris Jericho? I don't know. Maybe it's Andre Dawson.
That would be something I would pay to see. He is CM Punk, the best in the world, as he said, the WWE champion. He will not be escorting Chael Sonnen to the ring on Saturday night, but he will be competing live on pay-per-view this Sunday against Dolph Ziggler. This has been a huge honor for me. Thank you so much, CM. I really appreciate it, and always a pleasure talking to you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.